Welcome to this video. This is Higher Paper 2, Edexcel June 2022 past paper. We're going to be doing a walkthrough today, so let's get into it. Here we have some algebra questions. Let's solve them quickly. So x cubed to the power of 5, that gives us x to the power of 15. Here we've got to expand our brackets, then we can collect our like terms. So we get 4x plus 12, 28 minus 14x, collect our like terms. So we get 4x minus 14x, giving us minus 10x. 12 plus 28, giving us 40. So we've got 40 minus 10x. Here we have to factorize, so we've got to see the highest common factors between these two terms. So 15 and 3. 3 is the highest common factor. X cubed and x squared. X squared is the highest common factor, and they both don't share a y, so we leave that out. This one we're going to put 5x plus y. Transformations. So in this question we need to describe the transformation that maps shape S, the shape below, to shape T. We can see it's just moved, hasn't rotated or enlarged or anything, so it's a translation. So we put translation, and then we've got to see that translation, so we put 2 points that are the same, and we look at that journey. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 to the left, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 up. So with translations we use vectors to describe them, and with vectors we put our x coordinate at the top and our y underneath. So the x would be minus 5 because it's 5 to the left, and then it's 6 up, so it's a positive 6, and that's it. Error intervals. So in this question we've got the length of a football pitch is 90 meters, correct to the nearest meter. We need to find the higher error interval and the lower. So we've got 90 meters, the higher side will be 90.5, so 90.5, and the lower would be 89.5. Here we have a problem solving question involving area. So here we need to show how much more area per person there is in Festival B than in Festival A. So Festival A, I'm going to do 80,000 divided by 425, and that's going to give me 188.2 meters squared per person. For Festival B, it doesn't give us the area, so we have to work that out by doing 700 times 2,000 and then dividing that by 6,750, and once we do that we get 207.4 meters squared. And it said how much greater space do people have in Festival B. So we're going to do 207.4 minus 188.2, and that's going to give us 19.2. It said give your answer correct to the nearest whole number. I'm going to round that down to 19 meters squared, and that's part A. In part B we can see what Callum says here. He's not correct because 1 meter squared is equal to 100 centimeters multiplied by 100 centimeters. So instead of dividing by 100 as he's done here, he should really be dividing by 10,000, and that's his error. Here we have a coordinates question. I would say in these sorts of questions it's good to draw it out to help you understand. So I would say sketch out a straight line. It says the coordinates of L minus 3, 1, and the coordinates of M 4, 9. We've got L. You know what? Let me put M in the middle. Sorry, I've just seen the ratio. So the ratio is LMN. So let's put M there. It's going to be 4 and 9. So if we look at the gradient of this line, we can see we're going 7 to the right and 8 up. We've got our ratio. Our ratio is 2 to 3. So the length of m to n is 1.5 times these lengths. So let me just put 1.5 times. So 7 times 1.5, that's going to give us 10.5. And then 8 times 1.5, that's going to give us 12. So our coordinates at m are going to be 4 plus that 10.5. So that's going to be 14.5. And then 9 plus that 12. So that's going to be 21. And that's the answer. Okay, so in this question, we're going to be looking at percentages. A new phone costs $679. The value of the phone decreases at a rate of 4% per year. Work out the value of the phone at the end of 3 years. So in this question, we're going to use multipliers. So if something is decreasing, if something's decreasing at 4%, our multiplier is going to be 0.96. So we do 679 times 0.96. That's for 3 years. So we put it to the power of 3, and we see what that equals. That gives us 600.74, and that's our answer. Now we're looking at a conversion question. So let's work out how much Sam's paying first in pounds, because I want to get them both into pounds and litres. So Spain, that's going to be, so if he's paying 27 euros, we need to change that into pounds. So we're going to do 27 times 0.85. That gives us 22.95, which means he's spending £22.95 on 18 litres of petrol. Now let's look at Wales. Okay, so it's already in pounds, but I want to change the gallons to litres. So I'm going to do 8 times 4.5, and that gives me 36 litres. So that means he's spending £40.80 on 36 litres of the same petrol. So to be able to compare these better, I'm going to divide this by 2. So they're both 18 litres. So for 18 litres, Leo's spending £20.40. It says Sam thinks the petrol is cheaper in Spain than Wales. Is Sam correct? So we can see no, Sam isn't correct. It's cheaper in Wales. Okay, we've got a calculator question. You're going to just throw this into your calculator. You're going to get a long answer, 0.739337, and so on. We're going to round that to 3 significant figures, so we need to take these. In this case, we're going to round down, so it's going to be 0.739, and that's your answer. Okay, so we've got a pressure question here. Okay, so in this question, we've been given the force, we've been given the pressure, and we need to work out the width of the floor. So to do that, we're going to work out the area, and we've been given 1.2 meters as the length. So we'll be able to set up an equation and work out x. So first of all, let's rearrange this equation to area equals force over pressure. Okay, so that means area equals force is 180 divided by 187.5, and that gives us 0.96 meters squared. And now we know the floor is a rectangle with length 1.2 and x meters. So that must mean that 1.2 times x equals 0.96. We've got to rearrange that. So 0.96 divided by 1.2, and that's going to give us x. Once we divide that, we're going to get 0.8 meters. And that's our value for x. Let's look at this box plot question. So Andrew is saying that 3/4 of the given data lies between these two numbers here. So he's referring to the interquartile range, but we can see this data is ranging from 60 to 420. So it's actually taken up half the data. So we'll say the interquartile range is half the data. and not 3/4. Part B, they want us to draw a box plot. So the least value, our minimum, is going to go here on 30. Lower quartiles on 80, so that's going to be about here. Median is 170, so we're going to draw that there. Upper quartile 260. And our maximum greatest value is 350. So we connect our box plot like this. And that bit is complete. If you see, question C is asking us to compare the distribution of the cells in the online store and the cells in the shop. So the top box plot, this one up here in part A, that's the online cells. This one here is the cells in the shop. So we can take two averages to compare. So we can take the median. We're going to compare the median, and we're going to compare. So we're going to compare the median. So we're going to compare the median, and we're going to compare the interquartile range. So we can say the median for the online shop is greater, so on average they had higher sales. So online shop is greater, more sales on average. Then we can compare the interquartile range. And again, the online store has a bigger range. So online store has bigger interquartile range. So that means the cells are more spread out. Next, we're looking at a proportion question. So Kieran has 13 workers he can use for a job. He knows that 6 workers would take 14.5 days. Does he have enough workers to complete in less than 7 days? So that second line, we're going to work out how many days of work is being done if it was 1 worker, for example. So we're going to do 6 times 14.5. That's going to give us 87 days. So we know if one worker was to do it, that's 87 days of work. But Kieran has 13 workers, so we're going to divide that by 13. So once we divide that by 13, we're going to get 6.69 days. So yes, he would be able to complete it in less than 7 days. Parallel lines. So in this question, we need to show that these two lines are parallel. So parallel lines have the same gradient. We can see that line 1 has a gradient 2x, but line 2 needs to be rearranged so we can find out its gradient. So this is how it looks at the moment. This is line 2 equals 0. We need it in the form y equals mx plus c, so I'm going to just rearrange that a little bit. Plus 10x minus 4. I didn't need the plus there. And then to get y as just y, we need to divide everything by 5. So that's going to become 2x, and that's going to become minus 4 over 5. So I just went to write divide by 5 there. And that's it. Now you can see they've got the same gradient, so we've shown that they're parallel. Enlargements. So we're going to enlarge the shape by scale factor -2. The center of enlargement is 0, 0. So the center of enlargement is here. I'm going to start with this point. So if we look at the vector from the center of enlargement to this point, that's going to be -3, -2. -3, -2. So 3 to the left, 2 down. Because we're enlarging it by -2, I'm going to have to times those points by -2. And that's going to give me 6 and 4. So now when I draw the new enlarged point, it's going to go 6 to the right and 4 up. So that's the new point. And then we do the same for the other points. So this is -5, -2. Needs to be times by -2 again. That's going to give me 10 4 for the new point. So 10, 4. Okay, this point down here, that's going to be minus 6 minus 4 times by minus 2. It's going to give me 12, 8. So we go to 12 and then 8 up here. And the final point, that's minus 2 minus 4. Times that by minus 2. That gives me 4, 8. So I'll go 4, 8 and complete the shape there. And then finally, you can just draw your shape, the new shape, with a ruler. And that's it. Here we've got a capture-recapture question. So it says, on Friday, Saffron catches 180 fish from the lake, and she puts a tag on them. So we know that she's tagged 180 out of X amount of fish. And then on Saturday, she catches 305 fish, and she found out that 45 out of that 305 were tagged. So now we're going to use this information to estimate the amount of fish that are in the lake, which is that X value. So if we look at our scale factors, we can see that you'd have to times 45 by 4 to get to 180. So we've got to do the same to this 305, and that will give us our answer. So 305 times by 4, that's going to give us 1,220. So that's our estimate for the number of fish in the lake. Here we have a ratio question. So the ratio of M's pay to K's pay is 6 to 5. So we're going to represent that. We're going to write it down now. So MK is going to be 6x and 5x. They both get an increase of £1.50 in their hourly pay. So that means M's going to have 6x plus £1.50, and K is going to have 5x plus £1.50 also. Then the ratio of their pay after the increase is now 13 to 11, which means now this ratio is equal to that ratio. Work out the hourly pay before the increase. Okay, so now we're going to use these ratios to find X and then sub it back into the original ratio. So as these are equal to each other, we can set up some fractions. So 6x plus 1.5 divided by that fraction, the other ratio, is equal to 13 over 11. So we're just going to rearrange that to the following. Like so. Expand our bracket out, so 66x plus 16.5. Then we've got 65x plus 19.5. Okay, then we rearrange that. Minus 65 from both sides gives us x. And then 19.5 minus 16.5 gives us 3. So x equals 3. And then we're just going to times these by 3. So that means M originally had 6 times 3, 18 pounds per hour, and K had 15 pounds per hour. So here we have a Venn diagram question. So I would say read through this question, and then you can decide on the order you're going to tackle this in. So it says 4 use all 3 types. So we're going to put 4 in the center. 16 don't use any, so 16 is going to go outside, don't use any. 8 use type A and type B, but not type C, so 8 is going to go there. 14 use both type B and type C, so 14 would initially go there, but because there's the 4, we have to minus that from the 14, leaving us with 10. 62 in total use type A, but also all 20 who use type C use at least type A or B. So let's do that last one before we do the 62. So if 20 who use type C also use A or B, we have to do 20 minus the 14. There's 4 plus 10 here. And that's going to leave us with 6. So 6 must go there. and we're going to go back to the 62 who use type A. So to finish this remaining bit, we're going to do 62 minus 8 minus 4 minus 6, which is going to leave us with 44 for that section. And if you remember at the beginning of the question, it said they asked 100 customers. If we add these up, it's not going to quite equal 100. It's going to equal 88. So the remaining 12 must go in this B section. And that would be it complete. So for part B, it says, given that this customer uses, one of the customers is chosen at random, given that this customer uses type A, find the probability that the customer also uses type B. So out of the customers that use type A, we can see that was 62, because you can remember it from this bit. So that's 62 in total. The probability that they use part B is these two added together. So that's just going to be 12 out of 62. Okay, so here we have a volume question. We've been given the volume of a sphere, volume of a cone, but in this question we're actually going to need the volume of a hemisphere as well. So I'm just going to put hemisphere, just hemi for short, and that's going to be half of a volume of the volume of a sphere. So a half times 4/3 gives us 2/3. So it's actually going to be 2/3 pi r cubed. Okay, so we've been given the volume of the total shape, and we know the height is y, but we need to calculate what the y value actually is. So let's use what we know. We know that the volume of the hemisphere plus the volume of the cone must equal 120 pi. So let's just write that out. So hemisphere 2/3 pi r cubed plus 1/3 pi r squared times height must equal 120 pi. Next we're going to sub some values in that we know. So we know that, so before we sub some values in, I'm actually going to divide through by pi to get rid of that. And then, so the radius, that's going to be half of the diameter, which is 7, and that's going to be 3.5. That's still to the power 3. 1/3, radius again, 3.5. Squared, the height. So we're looking at the height of the cone. That's going to be y minus the radius, because y is the total height, and the height of that hemisphere is just another radius. So it's y minus 3.5, and that's going to equal 120. So at this stage, we're just going to simplify a bit. So once we start to simplify, we're going to get 343/12 plus 49/12, and we're still going to have y minus 3.5 equaling 120. Okay, next we're going to minus this fraction from both sides. That's going to leave us with 49/12, y minus 3.5, 1097/12. Next stage is to divide by this fraction on both sides. So I'm actually going to start writing up here. So I'll put a little arrow. So that's going to be y minus 3.5 equals 22.3877. Then we're going to add 3.5 to both sides, and that will give us 25.9 for y. And that's our final answer. So if you read part B, it says explain the effect this will have on our answer to part A. The answer is that our height would decrease. Okay, so we have a cosine/sine question. So it wants us to calculate the length of QS. So that's this side here. To work out the length of QS, we need to first find the length of RQ using the values in this triangle on the left. So if we're trying to find the length of RQ, we're going to have to use the cosine rule. So if you remember, the cosine rule is a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. Then we're going to sub in the necessary values. So a is going to be the length opposite the angle. So that's x in this case. We sub the other ones in, 9.4 squared. It doesn't matter which one's b and which one's c. 9.4 cos, and that angle is 27. Then we're going to rearrange. So x is going to equal all of the above square rooted. 9.4 squared plus 11 squared minus 2, 9.4. Like so. We put it in our calculator and we should get 5.01 centimeters. Okay, so we've got that for x. So that's 5.01. And now we're going to use that length and these two angles to find the missing length QS. And we're going to use the sine rule. And because we're finding a length, we're going to use the sine rule with the length on top. We're going to use that version of the sine rule. Okay, so we're going to look at our opposite. Just going to draw a cross there to show you the opposite angles. So opposite the 5.01 length is 41 degrees. So just going to write that there. So 5.01, that's opposite 41. And our x value, which is now the red line, is opposite 88 degrees. So we just rearrange this to get x on its own. So we're going to times both sides by sine 88. So sine 88 multiplied by 5.01 over sine 41, sorry, 41. And for x, so you put it on your calculator and we should just get 7.63. Okay, functions. So the first part of this question is finding G16. So we're just going to sub that in to this function here. So 16 minus 5. We put it in our calculator and we should get 3. The next part is finding HG or inverse function of Gx. So to find the inverse function of G, we're going to make it equal to y at first. And then we're going to rearrange to find x, and that will be our inverse function. So we're going to cube both sides. So y cubed gives us 2x minus 5. Then y cubed plus 5 gives us 2x. And then x is y to the power of 3 plus 5 over 2. So we actually write that as, so an inverse g function equals, instead of putting y there, we now put our x back in. So that's what it equals. But we need to find hg inverse g function. So we're going to sub that in to this function here. So h inverse g gives us 1 over this fraction here. Next, because the denominator is being halved, I want to get rid of that 2 from underneath. So I'm just going to times that by 2 and times the top by 2. And that's going to give me 2 over x to the power of 3 plus 5. Okay, we've got a circle theorems question. So in this one, we need to find angle CDE. So angle CDE is this angle I'm marking in green right now. The first thing we can do is find angle BAD, because the angle at the circumference is twice the angle at the angle in the center, sorry, is twice the angle at the circumference. So we do 132 divided by 2, and that gives us 66 for this angle there. Then you can see we've got a cyclic quadrilateral, and opposite angles sum to 180. So we can do, so to find this angle BCD, we can do 180 minus 66, which is 114. And then angles on a straight line equal 180. So again, this one's 66. And angles in a triangle add up to 180. So to find our final answer, we can do 180 minus 16 minus 66, which is 98. So angle CDE equals 98. We have a graph transformation question now. So the ones tested in this question, this is first one, so you should know your reflection. So if there's a minus x on the inside like that, it means it's a reflection in the y-axis. So we're going to draw a reflection in the y-axis. So this point would be over there. That one's going to move here. It's about 3. Okay, about 5 boxes this way. So I believe I've got it now. It should be something like this. So that's that reflected. The second part of the question is a tan graph. So it's a sketch of a tan graph. Again, you should be familiar with this. You've got 0 there. This asymptote is at 90, 180 there, 270, 360, and that's a cycle between 0 and 360. It repeats every 180. Okay, so this point Q that I've just covered up, let me rub that out a bit, moves to point R. So point R is at 90 minus 5. So point Q is currently at 360 and 0, which means that it's moved 270 to the left and 5 down. So we need to reflect this as an expression for g of x in terms of x. Okay, so that's the original graph there. Our original graph is y equals tan x. So as it's moved to the left 270, within that x, so within this we need to add 270, and then because it has moved 5 down, we've got to reflect that outside the bracket by writing minus 5. And that's the question finished. Quadratic inequalities. So let's have a look at this. The first part is going to be a difference of 2 squares. So we can solve that quite quickly. X plus 7, x minus 7 is more than 0. Draw a quick, well, x is going to equal minus 7 and x is going to equal 7. Let's draw a quick sketch of what the graph would look like. So it's going to be a curve and it's going to go through minus 7 and 7. So a quick sketch would look like that. And x is on the side that is greater than, so we want above the 0, which is going to be these 2 lines. That's above our x-axis. So then our inequality is going to be x is less than minus 7, because that gives us this side, and x is more than 7, because that gives us that side. Alright, the second part. Now we're working on this equation. Okay, so obviously this is a calculator paper, so let's use the quadratic formula and sub that in. Once you sub that in, your values for x should equal 8 and they should equal minus 9 over 5. You're going to do the same thing again, sketch a graph, and your minus 9 over 5 is going to be on this side, your 8 is going to be over there. Again, it's a positive curve, so it's going to be that way. And we want the positive side of this as well, so we want above 0, above our x-axis. So x is going to equal sorry, x is going to be less than r minus 9 over 5, and x is going to be more than 8. And there are your 4 inequalities for these equations. The final step is to look where it satisfies both of these equations, and you can see it's going to satisfy both at x is more than 8 and where x is less than minus 7. So there are 2 final answers.